You have Patrick Findaro here, co-founder at Visa Franchise Embedded Biz. John Constantine, CEO of ARCpoint Group. Thanks so much for joining today.
Good to see you. Appreciate you having me.
So, John, maybe we could start talking a little bit about your background and the industry that ARCpoint is in, and then later on we can go, in the franchise. But it's important that our audience understands like the context of what ARCpoint Group does and kind of the areas that you guys play in.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So I'm a healthcare guy, sort of a classic healthcare guy, a couple decades of experience working in healthcare diagnostics. Patrick, it feels a little strange to have enough years under my belt to say a couple decades of experience. I don't feel like I'm that old, but
You
yeah.
don't look it.
Did the classic healthcare thing, billing the insurance companies, and you got to go to your doctor in order to get the order, kind of how everybody is used to conducting healthcare. Very early, though, I realized in my career that this system is broken. There's going to have to be a fix at some point, but there wasn't a tipping point, 20 years ago. Enough people still had decent insurance. So helped build a couple diagnostics companies, everything from small mom and pop shops to private equity led and backed organizations. I was on the growth strategy side. So started as a salesperson, worked into marketing, and then eventually growth strategy operations. Came to ARCpoint in 2017. And a couple different things became a tipping point for me. One, I was super passionate about the healthcare system and how there needed to be a better way to conduct healthcare. You can see my shirt, improving healthcare for humanity. I mean, that is what my mission, my marching orders have been for years. But I needed an organization that wasn't addicted to the traditional healthcare system. Now, ARCpoint historically has been a drug and alcohol testing company. So franchisees perform valuable services in their local market as a drug testing company doing just that, drug testing. A common question that we get is, do people even do drug tests anymore? We don't see a need for this. Everybody's smoking weed. We're kind of cool with it. Like whatever that is. Like ignore your personal politics of that.
Yes.
Yes, because we have a drug abuse crisis. We have an opiate epidemic that's still out there. And so traditionally, ARCpoint has had this perspective of being a drug testing provider. We provide background check services. We cover a lot of the employee onboarding solutions for small businesses in the franchisee's backyard, but it also is a healthcare adjacent organization that allows the franchisees to offer healthcare services, but not through the insurance program, which is going to make it more expensive, more confusing, and more time consuming. And so the second that I found ARCpoint, it was ridiculously evident to me that this is exactly what I was looking for. And it actually blended several of my passions together. One, I love small business. I love the idea that we can create opportunities for other people to come in and find the best version of themselves through doing work, owning their own business. I mean, there's no greater privilege in life than helping people make their personal dreams come true through business ownership. But to be able to blend that passion with healthcare diagnostics as well, and to be able to do it in a way that makes it easier to access, cheaper, and less cumbersome for the people in the backyards of the 140 markets that we serve. I mean, Patrick, come on, you're going to want my job. I get so jazzed about thinking about how exciting the world is that we get to take part in, and we get to do it through franchisees that really are making their own personal dreams come true.
What was the size of the organization like when you joined back in 2017, whether it was roughly like unit count of franchisees or how many patients you guys were serving a year?
Yeah, sure. So back in 2017, we were hovering around 90 to 100 locations.
And now you've added on roughly 50 locations in that.
About 50 locations. Yeah. One of the things to keep in mind is that as a system that's been around since 2006, we're not new to this game, but our business has dramatically adjusted, right? And so if you were looking to be a franchisee and, maybe make 50 grand a year, not a lot of heavy lifting, you get to just have a brick and mortar, one staff member, get a bunch of drug test collections coming into your location. Maybe you're doing something else on the side. You're a senior executive with some corporation. That's kind of a side hustle, then that's what ARCpoint was to begin with. But the moment that we came in and started adding these additional services, it became a much more, interesting business model to me, but it also adjusted. So part of that change was going through the painful process of making sure that the franchisees who were we wanted, like were the ones that we
The right
wanted to
people
be
on the
on the
bus.
team, right? And so there's been this transition on not only the franchisee side, but also the corporate side to make sure that we had exactly what we needed in order to serve the franchisees well and make sure that we had the right franchisees that served our brand into the future based on where we projected that our organization was going to go.
And I imagine like part of the strategy of deciding to grow through franchising versus corporate is having these very passionate owner's eye driving and making connections in the local community. It's really difficult to, you almost can't like hire for that or pay for that.
Isn't that, I mean, that's the beauty of franchising, right? You can compare yourself to a big Fortune 500 pound gorilla where you're going to hire some staff, and at each level down the org chart, the passion wanes, right? But you get the big buying power. You get the decreased in overhead and all the efficiencies that big business creates. You compare that other perspective down to the mom and pop shop, right? You don't have any back end support. You're building your own website. You are everything to the business. You're the CFO, the CEO, the chief ops officer. You're the strategist. You're the salesperson. You have to carry that whole burden on your own. That's the other end of the spectrum, and you have no buying power ability. Isn't franchising kind of the middle ground between that, where you get the passion of a local business owner, but the efficiency of technology, the efficiency of buying power, and so you kind of get the best of both worlds, and that's really the vision that was set for ARCpoint by our founder Felix. Is let's leverage efficiencies of big business in order to serve our communities better. But let's take the passion and the drive of that local owner in order to get it out to the market.
So, John, I imagine for an ARCpoint lab, the franchisees focused on hiring, training, dealing with key accounts. How does the franchisor ARCpoint group, ARCpoint Labs, divide and conquer with the franchisee?
Yeah, so listen, I mean, one of the things about ARCpoint is that we feel like we're going to enable our franchisees to find success. We talk about some of our core values. I'll say this over and over again. We create opportunities for people to find the best version of themselves. We really believe that at all levels of the organization. I mean, I live with this for my children and for our staff at the corporate office, and we spread that across the entire nation. And so by doing that, what we want to do is provide the tools and the resources, the technology, the operations manual that allows the franchisee to come into an industry that they might know nothing about, but they can step in and lean into us as the industry experts in order for them to go out and market the business. What's funny is that we talk about how you market your business a lot at Discovery Day, through the development process and during onboarding. Of course, we provide sales training if people decide that they need that. But really, it's not about knocking on doors. It's about building your own personal brand in your community. And I'll give you a couple examples here. I'm connected to a nonprofit called All Pro Dads, right? It's something that Tony Dungy from Indianapolis Colts started up in that market. And he was passionate about getting dads on campus, especially elementary schools, where dads are typically not as engaged as maybe the other parent or maybe not engaged at all. But if you can create an environment for a dad to step in and have a conversation with their kids over a donut, and you can facilitate that conversation, then not only do you raise the awareness of the dads, but you build relationships with the dads and their kids. Okay, so I moved to Greenville and I started All Pro Dads for Greenville, right? Now, here's what's interesting. I live in a district where the elementary school has a lot of dads that, you know what they do? They're a lot of decision makers in a lot of businesses. You know what I wear? I wear an ARCpoint t-shirt when I stand up on stage and I talk about this. And so once a month, I get the opportunity to kind of display my personal brand, my passion for drug abuse, my passion for improving healthcare, weave that into the conversation with 200 decision-making dads. And you know what happens? They're thankful that I'm helping them build a relationship with their kids. And afterwards they come up and they say, hey, what's ARCpoint? Well, I'd be more than happy to tell you about ARCpoint. What do you do? Oh, you run a construction company? Amazing. Let me grab some coffee with you and tell you how I'm going to make your workplace safer. How's that sound? Okay, so all of this leads into just, as long as you're passionate about what it is that you're doing, as long as you can love it, you can tell that I get a little bit jacked up about what it is that we do. You're gonna naturally, it's gonna just flow from you in a way that's so natural that you don't even recognize that you're selling. You're networking. You're building awareness, and that's it.
You're enjoying the sales process, lower customer acquisition costs.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. I mean, listen, I love all those terms. I mean, I've come from private equity, tracking KPIs and EBIT and net profit. I mean, all of that is ridiculously important. But let's break it down to what a day in the life of a franchisee actually looks like, right? Everybody that you interact with the ARCpoint brand is a potential customer. Either they're a referral source, like an independent pharmacy or a doctor, or a business owner, or there's somebody like you and me that has had some sort of interaction with a healthcare system that has not met their expectations. And so you just live the ARCpoint life. You tell the stories about the food sensitivity test that identified that I have a sensitivity to almonds. That's why I needed coffee every afternoon until I cut almonds out. Or even getting a little bit more intimate and personal, and I have low testosterone. I never would have discovered that because my doctor wouldn't order that test for me. I ordered the test for myself through ARCpoint, identified the problem that I had, sent it back to my doctor and said, told you so. I wasn't mean about it, okay? But you just tell these stories about how your brand has changed your life for the better. And you know what happens? It starts changing everybody's life for the better in your community. And it just makes it such an easy process.
And it seems like the environment from someone that's a total novice is changing a bit with, health savings accounts. There's more discretion in terms of just benefits for people making their own decisions in terms of how they spend their money for their medical coverage, and just people kind of moving out of the insurance, where you see that with the upper class and now going to the upper middle class. And I think it's just going to go through society where people are going to be fine paying a few $100s for different exams that might not be covered by insurance, but could have a huge impact on their livelihood.
See, now you're touching on the exact sweet spot that we're sitting in. We're at this inflection point in healthcare where, for the first time ever, over half of the US population has what's called a high deductible health plan. And for those of you that don't understand what that means, it basically means that you're spending money every month through your employer just to get access to healthcare at what they call a discounted rate, but you're still going to be buying that healthcare out of pocket. Now, you might be able to use a health savings account, which is a separate set of money that you've set aside to buy these types of services. But you're spending a boatload of money that's unnecessary. And it's this whole idea that you get a discounted rate. Well, let me tell you, in the Greenville market, what my discounted rate is with my insurance company if I go through the local hospital system for that testosterone test. It's $373. Do you realize that we sell that test at ARCpoint for $79 with ridiculously healthy margin? Because we're cutting out the insurance margin. They don't build small buildings, okay? These insurance providers, they make a decent amount of money. We're cutting out PBMs. We're cutting out GPOs. We're cutting out all the middlemen in healthcare that people don't even realize are between you and your doctor, or you and your pharmacy, or you and your diagnostic test, by going directly to the lab, buying that at wholesale, selling it directly to the consumer at a retail price. We're able to save, look at that example. That's less than 1/3 the cost of what my discounted rate is with my high deductible health plan. Now, creating the awareness and telling these stories is primarily the job of the franchisees. We're there as the backup with email campaigns and webinars and industry experts and all the things that we do to help make that conversation flow a little bit better for the franchisees. But when over half of the US population is better served by using us than going through the traditional way, that's the opportunity.
I imagine, for a lot of businesses, COVID was a net negative, but going through your guys' financials, like there was a huge surge in revenue. And
right.
I imagine that revenue in terms of royalties, as well as just compensation to the franchisees, were you able to reinvest and create new products and spend more money on marketing campaigns and move beyond just drug testing or COVID testing?
Yeah, that's a wonderful question and a wonderful point. During that season, we'd get asked the question, so you're a COVID company, huh? I said, well, I guess we are doing COVID testing, but our core business is serving our local communities with diagnostic testing. It just so happens that we found ourselves in a position with a pandemic where diagnostic testing was a big part of the solution to get us out of that train wreck of a situation. Now, you bring up a really good point, was that good for ARCpoint? And yes, it was financially good for ARCpoint. Was it tough? Absolutely. It put a big spotlight on us overnight. We were sort of a quiet brand. I don't know that we were a household name. During that season, there wasn't a local media outlet or a national press organization that didn't reach out to us to ask us to be industry experts on what's going on with the pandemic. Everything from working with Congress and writing dossiers to go into the Oval Office to help leverage diagnostic testing in order to help get hospital elective surgeries running forward, to getting quoted on the front page of the New York Times as an employer expert on how to reopen your office post the shutdown. So we were able to leverage all of that. I guess we stepped into this opportunity with the perspective of, what do we want our story to be? You look back on this, and we just lived through a Pearl Harbor moment. Oh, yeah. We lived through a 9/11 moment again, right? This is something that kids are going to read about in textbook. Well, they won't have textbooks, but they'll write a ChatGPT paper or something about the pandemic of what we just went through, right? In distant decades. Now, we went with the marching orders of, what do you want your story to be? How do you want to translate what your life was like to your grandkids or your great-grandkids in future generations? Sure, we could have been quiet, and there were a lot of companies that were positioned exactly like ARCpoint that just kind of ignored it, or the risk was too big and they didn't want to jump into it. Too many unknowns. That's not the ARCpoint way, man. ARCpoint way was, we are improving healthcare for humanity. We jumped in with both feet so that we could serve our communities well. And by doing that, were we bold? Absolutely. Was there risk associated? Yes. But did it create passion throughout the entire organization, from every staff member here at the corporate office through every employee at every franchise location? 100%. And it created a nest egg for us that we were then able to leverage. Now, we didn't leverage it with yachts and condos and ski trips like we were talking about before the call, right?
You're in North Carolina, Greenville, not Miami Beach, Florida, where I am.
That's right.
Maybe it'd be different if you guys are based down here.
We leveraged all of that capital to make it easier for our franchisees to market the services. We built technology. We built world-class technology that allowed everything from a new website to have e-commerce scheduling, to interface with the behind-the-scenes labs that help us provide the services that we do in the local market, blending drug testing and background check into single sign-on solutions to allow our franchisees to represent their local business as a national company with thousands of collection sites that they have access to seamlessly. And then a fantastic patient portal that's all interfaced with physician networks that allow people to just order a diagnostic test as if it's the easiest thing. We say it is just as easy to order a diagnostic test as it is to make a reservation at a restaurant. And that was our goal. And so we invested in that in order to enable the franchisees to serve their communities better.
I imagine there's a lot of synergies and just like cross-selling opportunities between ARCpoint Group and the hundreds of franchisees. Like, thinking of an example, there could be someone that serves like a home health franchisee that has 300 to 500 caregivers in the Greenville market. They're serving them, and then they have a friend that wants services across the country. And I imagine ARCpoint franchisee in that area could tap in, and maybe there's some revenue sharing opportunities there.
Yeah, that there is, and we call it same store sales, right? So what additional services can we provide to our existing client base? And I think the B2B side of our business displays this probably better than anything else. Remember, we started as a drug testing company. Well, you market drug tests to HR managers and small business owners. What else do they need to buy? Well, they need background checks. If you're going to do a drug test, you're going to do a background check. What else do they need? Well, maybe they need post-accident testing. Maybe they need a drug testing policy. Maybe they need us to run in Department of Transportation. There's all sorts of technical areas of working with the clearinghouse or managing their consortium services, all these different things. Those are add-on opportunities. And so part of the charge that I've had since taking ARCpoint over is, what else can we sell to the existing customer base that we have that just adds additional value? You start with a drug test, the background check makes sense. The new drug testing policy makes sense. managing their random program, helping them get discounts on their workers' comp premiums. All of this leans into additional sales for the franchisees through the leveraging of technology that we've built on their behalf.
And John, for your franchisees, like how many own one and operate one testing center, and how many have multiple locations or plan to open multiple locations?
Yeah, so we have several, probably about a dozen of our locations that have multiple locations. But also keep in mind that technology solves a lot of the brick and mortar issues that are out there as well. All right. So one of the things that we were thinking about throughout the pandemic is, sure, franchisees are asking, hey, how do I multiply myself either in adjacent territories or in the existing territory that I have? I'm looking at building a second location or a third location. Okay, I love that idea. But also, why don't you leverage sites that are just built into our technology? So I'll give you an example. Quest is a wonderful company. It's a big partner of ours. We send a lot of our tests to Quest, but Quest also has collection sites across the country. Imagine that you go sell a local truck driving company down in Miami that is running, I don't know, they're running oranges all the way up to Detroit. Now you're running the drug testing program, the background check program, as well as the random program and post-accident program. Okay. Now, the benefit of leveraging ARCpoint's technology is, let's say that one of those truck drivers making that run on the Mandarin Express, right? Taking all those oranges all the way up to Detroit. Let's say that truck driver gets into an accident. Well, now they need to get a drug test conducted. Historically, and sometimes with other brands, what you'll see is the HR manager down in Miami has to call the franchisee and say, hey, I have a driver that was in Chattanooga, Tennessee. They got into a car accident. I need to get a test done. What do I do? And the brand manager has to say, let me do a Google search, find a local collection site. Let me call that person, negotiate a rate to do the collection. Okay,
no, we
perfect.
Need it right
Send
now.
them over here. Nah, I need this right now. Well, you know what the HR manager does? Hey,
What?
I'm going to send you a link, Mr. Truck Driver. And inside of that link, it's going to geo-target you and it's going to show you the site that is closest to you. You're going to go into that site. You're going to get your drug test conducted within the next 24 hours. And then, the results go, so leveraging technology that allows the franchisees to operate when they're a national company with only one brick and mortar, that was the goal.
And it sounds like from everything you're saying today, like you're not greedy and it's like about the bigger impact, and like paying some money out to Quest for convenience. It just becomes part of the cost of goods sold.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, you talk about being greedy or not being greedy. How much does that one employee cost you to be sitting there if you could just pay Quest a small fee to do that collection on your behalf, and it becomes a variable cost instead of a fixed cost, right? It actually ends up leveraging itself in a very, very similar cost structure as it would as you trying to own multiple locations, in different geographies. And so could we make more money maybe by having multiple locations and all that kind of stuff? I mean, maybe, but I feel like that's a little bit short-sighted. It's about making sure that the franchisees are able to make as much margin as possible, as quickly as possible.
And it could be a distraction to everyone involved. Yeah. You're going to have to help with site selection. They're focused on the build out, architecture, general contractor, and they should be networking in the community from whatever we talked about. And
there you go. That's right.
John, can you think of anything that we didn't go through today that would be relevant to our audience? It's a lot of prospective franchisees, many people that are employed here in the United States that are thinking about going in entrepreneurship for the first time.
Yeah. I do validation calls every couple of weeks, and I get to talk to candidates and hear the questions that they ask over and over again. And it all sort of revolves around a lifestyle. What kind of lifestyle do you want to have? When I was working for private equity, I was traveling all the time. I mean, this resonates with a lot of people. You become uncle dad to your kids, right? You leave on a Monday, you're going off and doing your business thing, and you feel good that you're providing for your family, but you're missing their life, right? You come back on Friday, and now you're a cog in some machine that you don't get to live in all the time, and it causes tension with your spouse. And these are all things that a big percentage of potential franchisees can relate to. Or maybe you're doing something you're just not passionate about. It's wonderful to make a widget, or it's wonderful to be a professional trade, an engineer, a CPA, a salesperson, right? But are you actually making the world a better place? And I think these are all areas that we find people get really passionate about becoming their own boss. Hey, why am I working my tail off to make some suit in the big corporate office rich when I could be doing this for myself. Now, maybe I don't have the idea that I can go off and create something from scratch, but if I can find something that actually adds value to my community that I would enjoy doing, and it starts to not only give me a paycheck, but it builds an asset that I can then sell at some point in the future to go do whatever my life goals are, then man, that's the perfect scenario. And so we tell people all the time, no harm, no foul. Come listen about us. If this is something that you can get interested in and you can be passionate about, if you have a personal connection to the opiate crisis, if you have a personal connection with wanting to make yourself better tomorrow than you are today through some sort of diagnostic, some sort of healthcare improvement system, if you're healthcare adjacent and you realize that the healthcare system is totally jacked up and you want to be a part of solving that problem and helping people get better access to healthcare, then listen, we are your solution. And if all of that makes me look like a dork or sound like a dork to you, then listen, we're not for you. Go build long sandwiches or pizza pies or whatever it is that you want to do. There's no harm in that either. But do something that you're going to be passionate about. And when you find that passion, you get grit. And once you find grit, that's the secret sauce to success. Something that you wake up every day and you are hungry to get out of bed, brush your teeth, drink a cup of coffee, and get to it. And if ARCpoint is that thing, fantastic. We love it. And if not, just make sure that you find that thing for you. That's it. That's it.
John, thanks. That's an amazing conclusion right there that I think can be applied for so many people, whether they invest in ARCpoint or another franchise or licensed business. What's the best way for people to further investigate owning an ARCpoint Labs franchise?
Yeah, first, you know what's interesting? Our service is for everybody. Try us out. When's the last time you went to the doctor, Patrick? We'll get a little bit further. When's the last time you went to the doctor? Has it been a while?
3 months ago.
3 months ago. Okay.
Yeah.
So you are not the typical person, but if you haven't been to the doctor in a year for just a general wellness visit, come into ARCpoint. Get an annual panel, use your HSA account if you have one, and really see what our services are about. That's step number one. If you like that and it's something that you can get passionate about, info@arcpointlabs.com. You can always reach out there. Go to our website. You can find our franchising tab there, or reach out to you, Patrick, I guess, right?
Awesome, John. Well, I mean, even though that I did the blood test, I mean, there's a lot of things that they weren't testing too, as you mentioned, testosterone, food allergies. So I definitely
you talk about like the viralness of a business like ours. I go to the gym. Every day. I'm a CrossFitter, so it's amazing that I made it 30 minutes of my life without talking about CrossFit. That's the big joke. But when I got testosterone, I had plateaued in all of my Olympic lifting. The exercise that we do, it's competitive. You get on a scoreboard every day. I plateaued. I wasn't improving. I got the diagnostic test identified where my gap was, and I solved the problem. Everybody started seeing me improve again. I got faster. I got stronger. I started to have a better attitude. I was less fatigued all the time. And so you know what happened? Every dad in the gym came and got a testosterone test. And it's funny. The ones that didn't have a problem, they were the ones that were disappointed. They're like, I thought you found a cheat code, man. I wish that I could find that cheat code. Or maybe your thing is something else. I don't know. But yeah, that's the nature of our business. Is it tells amazing stories. And it's an exciting time to be a part of this brand.
And I'm sure a lot of those people that, like the flexibility of working from home because they're not traveling as much, but they don't want to be selling in front of a computer. ARCpoint allows them to do relationship selling in person and still go back to their family at night and probably be more involved on a day-to-day basis.
Oh, 100%. 100%.
Awesome, John. So we'll be sure to include the links you mentioned. And thanks so much for joining today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for the opportunity, Patrick.
Thanks.